Welcome everyone to our genealogy club tonight. Um, we are joined by singer, librarian, and curator Tanisha Mitchell. Tanisha Mitchell is the founder and CEO of Opera Talks, operatalks.com, an arts outreach company that brings a new spin on opera lectures by using technology, artifacts, and even her own singing to teach and inspire audiences. Named a mover and a shaker by Library Journal, Tanisha is known for her innovative work in the arts in New York City, Long Island, and beyond. Her curating and archival expertise in the Metropolitan Opera Music Library helped the institution discover unknown rare treasures that reflect its performance history. Tanisha is also the arts coordinator at the Freeport Memorial Library, where she brings an invigorating perspective on classical music and opera programming. So Tanisha will be presenting on an introduction to genealogy resources, which we already have, we're familiar with it, but we can always use a refresher. So we're very happy to welcome you, Tanisha. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Erin. And thank you to the Oceanside Library for having me. And I know you probably like, based on her introduction, what in the world does that have to do with genealogy? But I will tell you how. One of the things that I also do at Freeport Library, I do the genealogy courses. And that was given to me years ago. And from then on, from doing the courses throughout the years, I've also done genealogy courses for other libraries, including Merrick Library as well as Hempstead Public Library. So this is something that I do in addition to. But my main thing, I'm going to say it, everybody, my main thing is opera and classical music. Now, as an archivist, one would say, what does that have to do with genealogy? I am not a genealogist, but I do have an expertise in how to use the resources as a librarian and an archivist, and especially doing cataloging and archiving in the Metropolitan Opera Music Collection. That's genealogy in itself, because that place has been around since the late 1880s. So there's a lot that I could say about that. But back to today, there's so much to say about genealogy. The best part about this is the fact that we have so many resources out there that makes it a lot easier for you. And you can start from anywhere, but there are certain things that will make it easier for you. At your library, I can't assume that everybody is from Oceanside Library, so I'll just go from there from a general standpoint. But in Nassau County, the two top databases that are used for a family tree search are Ancestry Library, Heritage Quest, as well as local history resources. Now, Ancestry Library is the most, I would say, the most popular one, because they have an excellent marketing campaign and they do have an excellent database that I will eventually show you. Heritage Quest is just as good. And the thing about Heritage Quest is that you can access it from home as well as in the library. Ancestry, you can only access from the library. Now, this is another special thing that I wanted to add. Say you go to any library in Nassau County and you bring your laptop and you connect your laptop to the library's Wi-Fi, you can access Ancestry. Okay, that's a little trick that I wanted to tell you. So like today, I went to North Merrick Library just to test this out because it's worked for me before. And I said, let me just test this out. And I went there and I connected to their Wi-Fi and I was able to get into Ancestry. So if you go to any library in Nassau County and you have your laptop with you, you can easily access Ancestry Library as well as Heritage Quest. And we'll go through the differences between the two. It used to be in 2020, during the pandemic shutdown, Ancestry was available at home, because I know that there were I know from being in Freeport, there were a lot of people who they did not see that they took Ancestry down from being accessible at home. But yes, it was accessible at home when libraries weren't open. But I believe a year or year and a half ago, they changed that. Okay. Heritage Quest is just as good. It's owned by the same company. It's just that it doesn't have as many resources in it, but it has the most important ones to me, which would be the census data, as well as telephone directories. Local history resources, I said, how serendipitous. I am doing this from the local history room at the Freeport Memorial Library, and I did it on purpose so you can see Ancestry. And there are many resources in your local history department. So, what is genealogy? It's a study of family history, basically, and the history of a particular family and how different members are related to each other. That is very important. Unfortunately, I had a funeral that I went to 2 days before Christmas. And this was a cousin of mine, and she was an older cousin. And I always knew her as Cousin Virginia. I always knew her from that. And I knew that she was on my grandfather's side, but I did not know how they were related. And one of the things that I kept asking my mom, I was like, Mommy, can you explain to me how? How is Cousin Virginia related to all of us, because she used to come to all of our events and stuff. So in her explaining, and my aunt explaining that, that's genealogy in itself. And we're actually going to look at my grandfather, which is, serendipitous. So there are two types of sources. There are primary sources. These are sources that contribute to the original or any type of documentation that's around the time that the event occurred. So that's dealing with birth, death, or even marriage, okay? And is written by somebody with direct and personal knowledge of the event. Examples of primary sources include birth certificates, marriage records, death certificates, will and probate records, deeds and land records. That's very significant. Other court records, adoption and naturalization. That's a whole other level. If you are adopted, it all depends on what you know about your family, whether adopted or natural. However, the census, I put an asterisk by it because it is really the main record taking device, or not device, but way of keeping up with records in the United States. And it's taken every decade, every 10 years. And so with the census, even though it is very important, there are mistakes. There are many mistakes, but it's still very important in how the Ancestry as well as Heritage, how they have compiled a database where you can search for things. And we're going to look into that and, why it could be a problem as well as a solution. Next are secondary sources. Now, secondary sources are derived from the original events, okay? Secondary sources include newspapers, biographies, secondhand accounts, okay? When I started doing this whole journey in I believe it was 2014, 2015, I used to think that secondary sources were secondary, that they weren't that important. They are important as well. And I'll talk about a personal event of mine. So secondary sources include oral history, tombstone inscriptions. There's actually a website called Find a Grave. And some people like to use Find a Grave, and some people, they like to use it just as a hobby. Military pension records, obituaries, that is key. That is very, very big thing. Ships passenger records, if your family immigrated to the United States, church records, and newspapers. Now, out of all of these, the most that I have seen used in secondary accounts are obituaries and oral histories. And now I'm going to talk about me because it's the best way that I could relate it to you. My father died in 2021. And I started, like I said, I started this searching 2014, 2015. My father wasn't from the United States. He was from Grenada and he grew up in Canada. And when I was doing this search, I asked my father about my great grandfather because we were always told that, our great grandfather worked on the Panama Canal. So I asked him about it, and he told me, he said, yeah, he's like, he did. He said he never knew him because he died before he was born, but he was told by his siblings, because my father was one of 12, and he was told that my great grandfather was a master painter, that he can paint buildings very well. Okay. All right. Now, fast forward to my search. I was doing my second family history program. And I did a search. I usually use my mom as an example because my mother is from North Carolina. She's from here. But I wanted to do an international search. Well, long story short, I searched the Panama Canal records and I searched the men that came from Grenada, couldn't find anything. And I put in painter. I said, let me just try it, okay? Just by a whim. And when I put in painter, everybody, I found my great grandfather who worked on the Panama Canal. I know where he's buried in Panama. I know when he got there. And that connected me to even getting more records. I actually paid for records from the National Archives, okay? So that's just my example. Secondary sources can either throw you off or they can put you on the right path. So where do I begin? I always like to go through these steps and then we're going to delve into the database itself. You begin first by gathering information, okay? You gather everything. In the case of me, with my father, I knew that from me, I knew that my father was not from America. And so I had to keep that in account. He was Grenadian and he was also a Canadian citizen. And I had to start from somewhere. Even with the idea of the painter, I wrote down the things that he told me. And on the other side with my mom, I did the same thing because it was a little bit easier, but long story short, gather everything that you know, okay? And number two is start backwards, all right? Even if it's I've had somebody that said that their ancestor fought in the Revolutionary War. Okay, that's wonderful. But where's your ancestor connected to? How are they connected to you? Where do they come in? I always tell people, start from the beginning. It makes things a lot easier for you. You can have like a clip art. If you want a clip art piece, family tree, there are many templates that are available. You could also use a digital family tree. I actually have one that I created with Excel, okay? But if you're not a tech person, you don't have to do that. You can just use something with clip art, you write down the information. Now for preservation purposes, that's a whole other story. You might want to do something with that because that can deteriorate over time. But you need something to show how these people are related to you, okay? And if you have brothers and sisters, I suggest that you do a separate tree because you could, if you're going back to who your great grandparents were, you want to start from yourself. Some people have half brothers and half sisters. So now you put that in the mix, you'll be confused. But you could have a separate tree where you put yourself and your brothers and sisters, okay, and then your mother and your father, whomever you are connected to or you know. And even in that one with the brothers and sisters, you start putting the siblings on each side, okay? Because my father was one of 12, my mother was one of 5. So I would have been totally confused. So I had to separate the two. Number 3 is be flexible. If you have a family member who's from another country, sometimes they either have different variations of their names, or whoever was recording what they were saying made a mistake. That even happens with American records, okay? And I said some relatives will show up in Ancestry or Heritage Quest with misspelled names or varied birth dates in the census and other records. This is an example. So like I said, start from yourself, okay? I start from me, okay? Tanisha. Now, I'm working on my mother's side, okay, of the family. This is my mom. And we're going to look at my grandparents just quickly. So you have Alfonso and Rebecca Washington, okay? These are my grandparents. When I did a search in Ancestry, what happened was, and first of all, this is the knowledge that we knew. His name was Alfonso Washington, and we knew that he was born August 18th, 1910. But when I did the search, I found this. So they spelled his name incorrectly, okay? Alfonza. This is actually from Ancestry. Now, my great grandmother on my grandfather's side, her name was Harriet, absolutely. My great grandfather on my grandfather's side, his name was Nick. So I don't know how they got this person, but this is indeed my grandfather. Another thing is, we thought he was born on August 18th, 1910. This is a World War II draft card, and it shows that his birth date was February 5th, 1910. So I was telling Aaron before this started that I was told that in the South, sometimes they did not fit especially with people of color, they didn't fill out their own cards. Someone else filled out the cards for them. So yeah, we're still trying to figure that out. But on the death certificate, it says that my grandfather was born August 18th. So just to show you, number 4, record the spelling and birth date variations. You have to keep a record of it, because what happens is it may not be true. It may be off by a year or 2, or even a whole name, as in, with my great grandfather. But I keep a record of those variations, because when I go back and I search, it makes it easier for me to search my relatives, okay? And find clues from other relatives in the household. Those little details may be wrong, but if you look at the household and you see, oh, I recognize all of these people, it could be the person. So this is from the 1950 census, and this is my grandfather and my grandmother. Now, they did better in 1950, okay? There's just a misspelling with the E. Okay. But let's just say I was skeptical and I said, you know what? I don't know what, I have no idea. But I know who these people are. I know that Curtis was my uncle. Elsie, we used to call her Duck. She was my aunt. And my mother, Celestine, she was 2 at the time. Now, Arliss is my aunt. So my aunt was a daughter, not a son. But just to show you here, this shows me that this is indeed my grandfather, okay? And so you have to be a detective. This is a list, just a short list of certain things that, other things that are available. Like I said, the census is the top as far as searching. And I'm going to tell you why too. If you have, let's say you have a family member and they came from Italy, and I'm going to just make this up, it's not historically accurate. Say they came from Italy in 1920, okay? And you found them in the 1940 census, let's just say. And obviously they came here, and let's just say they stayed here. You start backwards from that, because the things that they did over 20 years from 1920 to 1940 could really create some good records for you to locate them, and you work backwards from there. Okay. But with the passenger list, that's another way that you start. You could start. I personally suggest starting from the census and working your way back to the passenger list. On Ancestry, I know that there are some records that have photographs of those who came over. I'm not sure how they determine who or which ones had photographs, but we will take a look. The library, like I said, is an excellent resource. It's an excellent way to start. That's where you're starting now. So that's to access your databases. That's also to access obituaries and local history. The state archives, that's if you want to get a little further into your search, into maybe if it's local history, maybe you have a family member and you know that that family member lived in Oceanside in 1937. Okay, so they did, you would look in the 1940 census, and maybe they were in, I'm making this up, everybody, but these is things that I've seen over the years. Maybe they were in the chorus, okay, and they performed for a local World War II benefit, okay, and you want to know, like, oh, what maybe what they look like, or what did the newspapers say about their performance. That's where the library and the state archives comes into play, because the New York Heritage, which I will show you, has a lot of, I would say, a lot of sources that are digitized from local history departments. Last but not least is one that I would suggest if you just want to do a search without having to go through the library. I have not tried Family Search in a long time, and I'm sure that a lot has changed over the years. But FamilySearch.org, I've had people who attended my courses and they said that they loved it. I always ended up with a dead end, but I feel that because I end up with a dead end doesn't mean that you will, you know? So you could also try that as well, FamilySearch.org. The thing about Family Search is you have to create an account, and you have to keep up with that account so that you're able to get back in. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press escape, and we're going to look at the actual databases. So let me just press escape here, and you're going to see all this stuff, but I want you to see, I'm going to go to the Oceanside Library. Let's see, how did I get into it before? This is New York Heritage. One moment. Okay, here we go. Let me move this down here. Okay, so in order to get to the databases, okay, now, once again, I'm in the library. I'm in a Nassau County library. So I will be able to access Ancestry. You at home, you would be able to only access Heritage Quest, okay? But this is great, so you get to see what this looks like. Now, before I even get into this, I would always tell my people who are in the class, my attendees, do not access Ancestry from the web, because you're getting into the individual account, okay? You must, if you're in a library, you must access it through your library website, okay? If you are in the library accessing it. Heritage Quest is the same thing. If you're home and you access Heritage Quest, please go through the library's website. It will be easier for you, okay? So this is Oceanside Library. What you would do is you would go to resources and services, okay? And as you see, genealogy and local history is the third one. You're going to go to genealogy resources, okay? Yearbooks are really good, by the way. I'm not sure if I mentioned that, but yearbooks are an excellent secondary source, okay? But let's just go to genealogy resources. I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to scroll down. And from here, it has, I like what it has here, genealogy databases and other online resources. You'll click on that to get to your page. And this is where you get your resources here, okay? So this is what I'm going to do tonight. I'm going to open up, both Ancestry and Heritage Quest, okay? Because I've had a lot of people who would say, well, Heritage Quest is not the same as Ancestry. Listen, Heritage Quest is pretty good, okay? But if you want to do a further search, I would suggest Ancestry. But anyway, I'm going to open up Ancestry right here. Let me just go to the link, and it should open up for me because I'm in a library. Yay, it did, absolutely. And what I'm going to do is I'm going back here and I'm going to open up Heritage Quest. Now, you don't have to do this. It's up to you. Now, this is quite interesting. I wanted to also show you. What's very helpful is if you need assistance, of course, you could call your library, but you could also look at the tutorials that are available. Now, I know this tutorial is available outside of the library, okay, for both of them. So let me just open up Heritage Quest. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with Ancestry Library, because this is the one this is where everybody knows about, okay? Now, I just want to tell you all, Ancestry, the interface, it changes a lot, okay? But what never changes from what I've seen, and I'm not promising that that's not going to change, is this nice green button, begin searching, okay? This here is a new feature, and I'll get into that. It's really, really cool. What else is new is the 1950 census. Well, it's 2 years new because it came out in April 2022. So the census is released for public record in the United States every 72 years, okay? So 2022, the 1950 census was released, all right? So that here, they put that here as a highlight. You have your different census records, okay? So if you want to just search the census, you are able to do that here. If you want to search vital records, okay, there are some available here. Military records, if you want to do that, that's a whole other class. I'm not even going to get into that. But if you are really good at what you're doing, I say go ahead and try it. Immigration records are here as well. But this is one of the biggest things for a beginner, okay? For a beginner, you start as general as you can, okay? I'll say that again. A beginner starts as general as they can because you want to see everything that's available and you want to cherry pick which ones could be what you're looking for, okay? So I'm going to go here to, before I do that, everybody, I'm not going to go to the begin searching yet. There is something called, before I tell you what it is, I want to find it first because it's really cool. Let me see, charts and forms, new collections. I think it's here. This is it. Yes, new collections. Okay, before I begin, the card catalog is excellent. This is something that I have not seen in Heritage Quest. Maybe they've added it. It has many records. And if your family isn't from the United States, this is a great way to also access records beyond the census. This is how I access the records to my great-grandfather from Grenada, okay? So I'm just showing you this here. You can narrow it down by location. You could also filter by the type of collection that you want, okay? And you can sort by the date added, okay? But this, I'm going to tell you now, this is if you want to be experimental, you want to go further into your search, okay? So now let's go back. So for all of you, I would begin with begin searching, okay? So they used to have one green button, now they have two. We'll talk about this later. Begin searching. Start as general as you can, okay? So when you go to begin searching, I'm going to show you, it's going to search across many collections. That's what you want, okay? So I'm going to search my grandfather, and I'm going to do it the way his name is correct, is that I know of his name being spelled, okay? Now, remember I showed you that they have many variations. This is what Ancestry does, which is quite amazing. And I'm gonna do this here, and then I'm gonna do it on Heritage Quest so that you see what comes up. So my grandfather, my family, they're from Halifax County, North Carolina, okay? So I put in Halifax County, and sometimes it will come up for you like you see here, it's number 3, North Carolina. Now, birth year, do not, if you're starting from the beginning, don't put any birth year, okay? And I'll tell you why. Because when you do that, you're narrowing down your search, and there may be a record that may not be the birth year that you put in, okay? So I say don't be specific yet. Be as general as you can. So this is what I did, and I just put in the search, and I'm going to show you what happens. It searches across many collections, okay? You get the marriage records, and I know that this is my grandfather because my grandmother is here, Rebecca Washington. I get the census, the 1950 census, the 1940 census. I get the 1910 census. I get a lot of things, okay? And I'm just showing you this. Now, I want to show you this too. You also have to think if your search is general, you also have to think about clues that you know, okay, about your family member. So if you see a family member that's in the household or connected to that family member that you don't know, that may not be the person. This is an excellent case here. It says, this is the World War I draft registration card. My grandfather was born in 1910, okay? They say 1911. So World War I, he would have been a child. This is not him, okay? I don't know who Delia Garrett is. And the birth date tells you April 3rd, 1897. So you have to use the knowledge that you know about your family member to narrow down what you're searching. However, the card that I showed you, this is who he is right here. Now, had I not known anything, okay, I would have known that this was wrong here, okay? But what I would do, and I said, let me just click on this and see what this is. If it's the one family member and there's nobody else around, just look at it, okay? And I'm going to show you this too. With draft cards, also look at the household members. So I see here that Rebecca Washington is in the same household as he is, okay? And so I know this is my grandfather. I don't know the birth date. That's not what we've known, but I know that this is my grandfather here. So I would record that information. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to search Heritage Quest, because this is what you have access to now. You can do this from home. And, you know, even when we're done with the class, if you want to, you could go up there on Heritage Quest and try as much as you can. So this is Heritage Quest, everybody. Okay. And notice it's a similar layout. Okay. It doesn't have as many records as Ancestry, but it's really good if you want to search the census, okay? So like I said, begin searching, the green button, not this one here. And you go into begin searching, and what Heritage Quest does is, instead of you just searching like Ancestry, it gives you different collections, okay? I would say that you see all these Social Security death index. Listen, that's a scary thing too. I found many Social Security numbers of family members. Yeah, that's another thing. But if you want to search Heritage Quest at home right now or after, I would always say start with the census records, okay? If you want to do a general census search, you can. So I'm going to do that. If you want to be specific and you want to say, well, you know what? I want to search the most current census that's out there, 1950. You could do that too. But I'm going to do a general search. And I'm going to search my grandfather again. And let's see what they say here. So this is really, it's a little more detailed, but you just follow the same formula. So Alfonso Washington, okay? And I'm not putting anything else. Now, I will put in where it says lived in. If you know that your family member lived in Queens or lived in Minneapolis, Minnesota, put it in there, okay? So I put in Halifax, and they do the same thing, Halifax County, where they help you. So you click on that. And I don't put any of this stuff in here, okay? Nothing else. I try to be as general as possible. Don't put anything else because you will be confused, you know, if you're starting out. And look what happens here. It does the same thing. It searches across different census, okay? But the thing about Heritage is that you're not searching across various collections. You're only searching one collection at a time. So this is what you can access at home, and it's pretty good. It's the same thing that I found here. This is Ancestry. The only thing, like I said, Ancestry, you get other things as well. World War II draft cards, marriage records. I think I found a marriage record, and I'm going to see here. I found a cousin. This is a cousin of mine here, Alvin. So I'm trying to see if I could find a marriage record. So marriage records is number one, everybody. I'm just going to show you this here. And this is an example of a marriage record here. This is how they took the records. They were born, excuse me, not born. They were married August 10th, 1929. And you can also look at the original document, you know, the power of technology, you know. And I'm going to see if I could find it here. Washington. I have to look at August 10th. So they would be right here, if you see my little hand right here. So that's the original documentation. You with the marriage records, you would have to, in heritage, you would have to search an individual collection in order to find that, okay? So that is the difference, all right? I'm not going to go further if you all have questions, because I don't want to keep searching myself, you know, my family. I want to know about you guys, and I can't search everybody, but if you have any questions, please let me know now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the beginning of Ancestry so that you can see, we can start. Oh, before I take questions and we can talk, I just have one more thing. I sound like Columbo. My mother used to love, well, she loves that show. Okay, that's where I learned it from. I don't know what happened here. Okay, here we go. There's a new, they have a new, it's like a new search tool, and it's called Family History Search, okay? This is fairly new. And what it does is this: if you search for somebody, it gives you another family member that's connected to the family member that you search for, and it creates a story out of it. So since we're searching my grandfather, I'm going to put grandfathers. It's pretty cool. And I'm going to put in, again, Alfonso Washington. Okay. And this is something that I learned before, that they were in the town was Palmyra. This is to get very specific, you know, because I searched it before, but you don't have to be. So watch this, everybody. This is interesting. This is also, excuse me, available on Heritage Quest. So this is not exclusive to Ancestry. Oh, you're not available. Okay, we're going to try it on Heritage Quest. Let's try it. It does something really cool. I'm going to go back here. All right, so let's try it here. Now you all will see if it's not available in one place, then it's not available in the other. Let's see here if it's available. Let's see. Oh, okay. And look what happens here. It says we have too many results. Help us narrow it down. So I know that my grandmother's name was Rebecca. So I'm going to put her in, excuse me. And if you're searching a woman who was married, if you want to search her as a married woman, you search her married name. If you want to search her before she was married, you search her maiden name. That's very important. So I'm going to put in her married name. So they already have it automatic because I was searching something. Why are you not able to find them? Let's see. I'm not going to do anything. Let me just see what happens. Here we go. They're going to ask you, what decade did Alfonso die? So he died in the 90s, okay? All right. Let's see if I can find him here. And in some aspects with this new search tool, you could find your family member and you may not be able to find your family member. In this case, I can't find him here because I don't see Rebecca. I'm going to try again. So I'm going to just put in, let's see here. I'll put in Rebecca. Now, if you're narrowing down a search, you can put in a family member, okay? There we go. He's right here. So I'm just going to show you what it does. Let's see here. It does this little search thing. And let's see who they're going to tell me. Harriet Washington, that's my great-grandmother, okay? Your great-grandmother, Harriet Evans, that was her maiden name, was recorded in the 1940 census. That's great. You can write that down for your family member. And then you press this button here, and it shows you the rest of the story. And it says your great-grandmother's 1940 census record is filled, blah, blah, blah. Excuse me. So you can take a look, and it tells you, it creates a storyline. So it says your great-grandmother's 1940 census record tells us that she was 57 years old and living in Palmyra, North Carolina. at the time the census was taken. Okay, this is really interesting. Now, the only thing is, if there's a mistake, it will record that too. Okay, it says the enumerator also asked your great grandmother about how far she'd gotten in school, and Harriet answered none. Okay, you could also look at, they connect your ancestor to a larger event. So your great grandmother and the Great Migration, all right? And it tells you a little bit about the Great Migration. I know she didn't go up north. So they'll tell you, if they moved up north, they'll tell you what to do. So this is fairly new. And it tells you 90% of the African-American population lived in the South in 1910. So obviously for you all, it will be something totally different, okay? So I'm gonna open it up. Let me go back. This is not where I wanted to go to. And like I said, please access Ancestry through the library. Even if it tries to bring you back, don't yeah, let me go back to, you see, I'm just showing you this. It didn't work through that search. It's bringing me to the commercial Ancestry site. You're not going to be able to access it there. So when you're in the library, you have to go back to your library's website and you'll access it that way. So what I'm going to do is, if you have any questions, I'm going to open up Ancestry again. And I won't open up Heritage, okay? Because I know that it could be a lot. But I just wanted to show you. If you have any questions, please let me know. I know that's a lot of information.
Thanks, Tanisha. I'm going to stop the recording and then we can
Sure.
questions. Great. Thank you.
Yes. Mm-hmm.